Morning, everyone, and welcome to the JDC West 2023 Business Technology presentation, sponsored by Nutrien. Before starting today, the JDC West Organizing Committee would like to make a land acknowledgement. The University of Saskatchewan, Saskatoon campus is located on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We pledge ourselves to create a competition that celebrates the diverse cultures and history of this land. Thank you to our judges from left to right. We've got Scott Cheston, Jesse Weeb, Andrew Smith, Anna Tavares, and Johannes Lindenbaum. My name is Matthew, and I will be the academic moderator for this presentation. Competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. Our academic timekeeper, Maroff, will hold up timing cues. He's in the back right there throughout the presentation and the question period. Judges will indicate their intent to ask a question through raising their hand. I, the presentation moderator, will call upon them to ask their question. Once the question period has concluded, the delegates will be escorted to leave the room. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience at any time. Please ensure your cell phones are turned to silent and there's no talking amongst yourselves or signaling to competitors throughout their presentation. Competitors, you are free to begin your presentation.
Your home, your workplace, and even your commute today to here has been made possible because of the hard-working hands of the construction industry. People like Sam, who have built Canada from the ground up and continue to build them. And at MCC, you enable that with your innovative and industry-leading technology. And that is why we are so excited to be here today to present you our strategy to enable and be an enabler of this growth to help users like Sam and others in the construction industry to ensure contracting and construction success. Good morning, everybody. My name is Fendi, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Jin and Anderson. And we're so excited to be here today to provide you the fast track to your future success. Our objective today is to improve the production staff for MCC with enhancements and to sustain your reputation, as well as ensure that you continue to be an industry disruptor through continuous change. As part of our analysis, we took a look at 3 things, including understanding who your key stakeholders are, how you can scale your production staff, as well as improving your resource enhancement. With our recommendation of Ready, Set, Go, we look to see an $10 million operational income by 2025. Now, you're probably wondering, why us, why today, and why now? And we'll answer that, so let's dive into our analysis. What we first wanted to understand is who your key stakeholders are. And we have identified some from both internal and external. From left to right, we see the construction ecosystem, such as the asset owners, the subcontractors, and the contractors as one of the key stakeholders, with a lot of power and influence on what MCC does. As well, we see these governing entities, such as the Workers' Compensation Board, that are going to ensure the safety of these construction workers, as there can be a lot of industry or safety claims, rather, that happen through their on-site jobs. Finally, we also see the internal staff within MCC as a key driver as to how the operations is going to be ran. And what we want to note here is the key stakeholder, the construction ecosystem, as their needs and wants of having a stable and safe employment is going to ensure the success of MCC and your production and service development ecosystem. The implications, if this is not achieved, is we see this domino effect happening in the overall industry, where there's an increasing number of employee turnover and difficulty retaining these workers as they are leaving the industry and also being exacerbated by COVID. We want to dive further into this stakeholder by introducing our stakeholder, Sam, who is a experienced contractor and also liaisons within that atmosphere. He's a project manager in Regina, Saskatchewan, and some of his key motivations include being able to see project construction go forward as planned. He also has behaviors such as wanting to make sure things are as precise and accurate as possible, because this is very important in construction to ensure that you are being compliant and things are being met. His core needs include utilizing his very well-established networks to ensure that positions are filled, as this is something we have identified to be very useful in the construction industry, is word of mouth and finding your positions. As well, he wants to find the best candidates to ensure that he builds that rapport moving forward. However, we've identified a few pain points, including that difficulty hiring the suitable candidates because of people leaving the industry and having a hard time retaining. As well, he's spending more time than necessary actually on site and taking care of these less experienced workers to ensure that they are getting the precise and accurate results that he needs in construction. As such, our key takeaway is that employee retention as well needs to be prioritized in order to decrease the effects of turnover and in this very vulnerable industry in order to sustain the business operations and future growth. And now I'd like to pass it over to Jin, who will go through our second analysis point.
Thank you, Fendi. So if we take a look at how the business exactly makes money, there's two jurisdictions, whether it be hardware and software. Currently, we use data collection software such as SmartBridge and SmartGap, where we collect invaluable data using IoT devices. Furthermore, we have a smart brick to bridge the gap between hardware and software. There's lots of opportunities that we currently see, whether it be the certification manager where we can update and upscale this actual software itself. Furthermore, there's Project Pro, which is our current project management software service that we provide for our clients. There's lots of opportunities that we've identified that we'll go on a further slide to where we can potentially improve. However, for this section itself, we'd like to reiterate that the orientation part where we provide safety training for the actual employees themselves is the most important pain point that we want to specify on, as safety is a huge issue as claims are rising, as Fendi previously mentioned, and this is something we need to desperately focus on. As such, the key takeaway for this section is that to expand within the Canadian construction industry as well as other countries, MCC must scale their product and focus in on these services and how to improve them and address customer pain points. Now I'd like to introduce Anderson to go over our last analysis point.
Thank you, Jen. So going over to the next analysis, what does the current construction process look like? How do project managers interact with contractors to get something built out? Well, looking at this four-step process from design, procure, as well as contract and build, we can see that number one, not only is that the design and contract phase, design and procuring phase a lot longer, another reason is that the procurement and the contract part has a lot of pain points in this area. What do I mean? Number one, with the labor shortages, it's getting increasingly difficult, as Fendi said. It's really difficult to get the labor that you need. And finally, because of this, there's going to be a huge emphasis on labor management. With rising costs, this has never been more important. With labor management, we're looking at different aspects. Here, we need an adequate tool to manage our scheduling, different contractors, so that they can perform the tasks that they need on the projects most effectively and efficiently, and also meeting up to the standards that Jin has previously mentioned earlier. Next is, in this page, we already have Project Pro, but there's an opportunity to make it a little bit better, because on the currently side, there needs to be a better tool to ensure that cost is not overrun. Next, the key takeaway here is that the construction industry is an opportunity for industry-leading tool for management, because currently there is no one standard, as it is still a low-tech industry looking for disruption. And here we can see that they're in the area to become that one-on-one tool. Next, I'll pass it over to Fendi to go over the recommendation.
Thank you. So now that we've gone over our analysis points of understanding the stakeholder, as well as looking at how you can scale your production staff rather, and finally addressing Anderson's point on that human resource management aspect, we're so excited to introduce to you our recommendation of Ready, Set, Go. So are you ready? Get set, let's go. Our first recommendation is the Ready, which is an app that we've named Brick by Brick. And what this will do is connect different contractors to companies that are currently having and experiencing this labor shortage. So what we want to do is be that bridge for Sam when he's struggling to find the perfect candidate in order for him to speed up his process and move his timelines along for his different construction projects. What key features we see here is that they're personalized job recommendations for different candidates that will be able to use data to help to flow the things, and we'll break down what kind of data we'll be collecting as well. Further, we're going to use a matching algorithm for different job postings to make sure that the candidates are going to be finding the jobs that apply to them, and we're going to be doing so through an AI algorithm to make sure that we're leveraging the best skills for the workers and making sure that SAM finds them. Finally, we want this to be a platform where they can build new creations beyond just that very manual calling process and word of mouth, to ensure that opportunities are being equitable throughout the entire process instead of just relying on the connections to get your jobs. So diving further into this, what is the pricing strategy going to look like for this app? We want to start with a free download through the major app store services and focus on both B2C and B2B. B2C would be for the contractors and the different users that are looking for jobs, while B2B are those construction companies looking to hire. And we can expand this onto other niches in construction that perhaps want to target users, such as for workwear or for hard helmets, so on and so forth. So for B2C, some of the key services that we'll have is in-app ads, and this will be used to help sustain the app development, as well as a profile creation to ensure that you are getting your networking opportunities out there to find jobs, and that job creation to make sure that you are going to be paid for your time, obviously. And finally, personalized recommendations. And this toolbox matching that will happen through a toggle that you probably saw in the last slide. What this will do is enhance that AI algorithm to ensure that your recommendations are becoming even more personalized, almost like a nitro boost for that effect. For the B2B, what we want to see is for all of the construction companies to have access to a grander pool of candidates and the opportunity for us to potentially sell the data so that they can target their consumers even better and then help with those synergies in product and service development. Finally, for us, we do want to see a give and take in terms of the benefits of the relationship. So we want to enact a 4% contract value for every hired candidate that uses the application. And that will be the only freemium sort of pricing model that we have. And the reason that we want to do this is because we have seen it be successful in similar industries, such as project management. Project management is very similar to how construction and contracting works, such that these timelines are very limited and it's not ongoing. So we see Talent Marketplace, which is a Canadian project management company, use this similar process to be an intermediary. And they have been able to see this personalized candidate matching for companies and as well as candidates to ensure that they are being maximized and finding those opportunities. So in terms of how this app is actually going to get to the consumer, we want to do three things. Really leverage that word of mouth channel because this is something that is very innate to the construction industry, as well as use this emerging digital platform because we want to target the younger market, those that are entering into the job market and really wanting to find a specialized trade and craft to help balance out those exiting and retiring from the industry. We also want to use physical materials. This can be done by putting them into different perhaps partners, or if we can solicit companies such as in stores that sell construction outfits just to get the word out there. But we definitely want to maximize the word of mouth and leverage the current channels that we have and the rapport that we've built with our current clients. And as well, we want to highlight two main things in the go-to-market strategy for our brick-to-brick app. The first one is the use, which is how we're going to make sure that users are going to be adopted and continuously use the app. The first one is we want to have in-app reels, so really short clips to ensure that they know the features that are happening and have little tips and tricks on how they can maximize their exposure. As well, we want to have FAQs and feedback to ensure that we're continuously developing this app and closing that feedback loop to ensure that we have more opportunities to expand in the future. As well, from the gamify side, we want to ensure that users are incentivized to use the app through points and badges such that they can be reviewed or favorited by frequent contractors. And also, we can influence the search optimization. For an example, if someone has very high ratings, they can be pushed up a bit in terms of when a search happens. And finally, in terms of the data collection that I mentioned before, we want to have 3 tiers of data that can be used to potentially be revenue generating or in terms of data analysis and insight-driven decisions. The first one is the tier 1 information, which is basic customer info, followed by tier 2, which we identified as preference and profiles, and tier 3, which is the very confidential and sensitive data that we want to ensure is protected. And with that, I'll pass it over to Anderson to go through our second recommendation.
People are arguably the most important aspect of a business, especially when it comes to construction. Now that we've understood the strategic direction for the company, what can we do with our current services? Where we really double down is the current services of orientation, our software services. What we want to do is develop a gamification, training, communication plan and rehaul the current service. What we plan to do in our first step is to establish awareness and desire amongst the current clients that we have through email notifications and actually going on site, as this is the most important part for a construction company. The in-person cadence, the interaction, having those workshops and really instilling that desire and awareness of the current benefits that we can provide for them. Going to our next section, we want to rehaul through a web-based training module, training plan, and installing gamification concepts for those companies, for their employees themselves, whether it be through online video conference training or through modular click-through training where they're going on the app itself. Through this, we want to install engagement, as we understand that a lot of employees just click through the training modules just to get through it for the sake of it. However, instilling these gamification concepts, we're able to instill engagement from the employees themselves. And then how do we sustain this change itself? What we plan to do is to encourage the actual longevity of the change management plan. We want to develop a leaderboard for these companies themselves, so the internal employees can see how they perform against their fellow employees and to ensure competition and instill that desire. We give the company the option to determine whether they want to do recognition through monthly recognition or certain incentivization such as gift cards. Now I'd like to introduce Anderson to go over our last recommendation point.
Thank you, Jim. So now that we talked about how we can improve the safety of our labor, what's the next step? Well, the next step is let's expand Project Pro to Project Pro Plus. So what is Project Pro Plus? Well, this is going to become an all-in-one platform for scheduling for contractors in the construction industry. As I mentioned earlier, there is a gap to have this all-in-one project management tool for this for construction. Well, we want to have the vision of having this as the industry standard. And what we're going to be doing here is that having this resource management tool can provide an all-in-one platform, but not only, it can also become a way to innovate and continue to innovate as what you have already done with the variety of product strategies that you currently have. What are the kind of features? Well, number one is a multi-project management tool. We can have now one with contractors as well as companies and a project management tool. They can go and look at the scheduling of all the contractors as well as different companies and understanding what the timelines are, having a more easy all-in-one place to understand what the timelines look like. Another thing here is that with this contract or with this Project Pro, we can have tasks and goals and objectives, and this makes it a lot more clear and easier and much more visible for those who are actually constructing the project on the floor, on the working floor, to understand on a daily basis different updates, what's the plan, and what kind of changes that can be made on the spot. And here, with this, another key area is document management. A lot of construction industry reasons that could be for low tech is because a lot of the blueprints are either handmade or could be visualized purely. Well, we want to expand the project flow so that this can all encompass in this one platform, and whenever there's changes being made, it can be tracked accurately. The last thing we want is to have an inaccurate blueprint and build something that's wrong, and that results in even further costs for redevelopment. Finally, this will result in the labor optimization, as there's going to be less rework, there's going to be more efficiency found from our current existing labor, and it's going to optimize by 3 hours per employee. Next, now that we know what we want to do, how can we get to where you want to be in the most efficient way possible? Well, let's look at our timeline. Well, we're going to have 2 quarters for hiring, and this is going to be encompassing hiring and training with the functional requirements, understanding what the use cases are, ensuring that we know exactly what the contractors and the companies want from the app. Next, within the technical requirements, we're going to understand how it's going to map and route towards our existing software and infrastructure. Finally, our training and testing will come within the next year, and the milestone here is a minimum viable product created by 2024, Q1. Lastly, our KPI is a 15% of labor optimization by 2025. So who are we hiring? Well, for our app development team, we are doing a lot. We are, one, having an upgrade to our existing software, as well as creating a different app. We're going to be hiring 2 full-stack engineers to help facilitate this process, as well as having a change manager, as well as a data scientist. These 3 criteria is that experience of the cloud, as well as software as experience, and finally, having confidence in working in a startup culture, as well as those who are passionate about the construction industry. Next, I'll just pass it over to Jin to talk about the financials.
The $1 million question of why we are here today is how much does this cost? We've allocated our $5 million budgets in a cost to achieve and a cost to run. $3 million in terms of how much it's going to cost to achieve, and $660,000 ongoing cost for the next 3 years. We've allocated these fees accordingly, and we've determined that there will be a cumulative cost of $5 million. In terms of our risks that we've identified that there could be potential client adoption risks, as it's hard to get people on board with these new changes, and we all understand that. What we recommend as a mitigation plan to offer incentivization to help with platforms and to use trials to get people on board to actually use the app to see the benefits and how they can visualize them. The other risk we identified is the AI model can potentially be inaccurate. The risk mitigation we identified is to implement human thresholds to improve accuracy. Overall, with our recommendations of Ready, Set, Go, we've identified that there will be a $10 million operating income by 2025, and you'll be able to direct your company to a better future and help consumers like Sam. Thank you so much for listening.
You have this like big marketplace of employees, and you're going to rank them and compare those construction workers to other companies. Like how can I convince my customers that it's not going to end up in this like it's not going to increase additional kind of like labor turnover where this employee just gets poached over and over and over again, and labor costs go up and up and up. Have you thought about the effects of the marketplace?
Yes, so this was one of our key considerations. However, what we realized is similar to project management, construction also sees this a lot. And so there's a lot of variability that happens in the market. And we see this platform similar to our use case of Talent Marketplace to help be that middleman to ensure that there is a balance throughout. And we can use the data collected, such as the pricing and such, to ensure that the market is favorable.
Question. So you've spoken about selling the data. What data do you plan to sell? You have 3 years of it. And what are the impacts that might be to your client relationships?
So in terms of the data that we want to sell, obviously tier 1 data is very personal information that we don't want other companies understanding. However, with data collection, one of the main revenues that can be generated is through the selling of it. What we want to sell is potential information that could be used for analytics platforms that other companies may potentially want, such as Statista. This can be demographic information about the users themselves, about what they want, what certifications that they're currently popular, what the trends are in that market itself.
In your KPIs, you have 15% of labor reduction costs. You are going to be charging contractors more to find labor. So is there anything else that you would measure, or how would they find this labor reduction cost if you're charging them more?
Yes, so for the labor reduction cost, this is going to be looking at the time saved from making sure that we have the adequate employees for the job. So for example, let's say we have a lot of different labors, but it's difficult to kind of manage and track them all at the same time. Having a online tool to make sure that we can see the progress, see how long they've done certain tasks, we can use that data and use real-time analytics to ensure that not only we can in the future recommend different types of contractors based on different roles, it can also reduce the time it needs, because a lot of project management is estimation, and we want to reduce that estimation to be as accurate as possible, and there we'll be seeing the labor.
Sam,
trying to go through a talent acquisition marketplace path, that's heavily digital, like would sound do that? Because it goes into more of that sort of closer to reaching that return age segment. So it is.
Yes, we understand what you mean by that. So Sam is someone who will rely more on that word of mouth to make sure that his contracts and construction needs are filled. What we see with this app is not only targeting them, but also targeting that new talent coming in as well. For someone like Sam, who ideally would have used MCCP current services and products, we can help to be that bridge to offer him different benefits for him to try the app and make sure that he's getting the freshest talent to make sure that his business is going to be long and existing in the long run.
Big part of getting that though, this would be targeting maybe $130,000 unit cost, how that money.
Absolutely. So in terms of the marketing, we've allocated the salaries already that who we're hiring in the salary section. But in terms of marketing itself, what we want to do is find the channels that we want to target our customers, whether it be word of mouth or having demos or workshops and sending employees on site to actually show how the application would work. Also, we want to do some digital marketing as we understand that the youth millennial are more attracted to digital advertising. This is where we want to actually host platforms and host these venues for these to target these youth millennials to actually see those postings and actually use the app itself.
All right, that concludes our question and answer period. Thank you, judges, audience, and delegates. We're now free to get to the right hand side.